Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Become a member to the channel. Leave that donation for that fried rice and chicken wings. Look, man, horsehair gloves for Conor. In case y'all didn't know, Conor Benn, he wants to use horsehair gloves. Eubank Jr.'s team opposed that, and Eubank Jr.'s team and Conor Benn's team got into a little verbal scuffle. And it almost led to a bit of a fisticuffs, but cooler heads prevailed. Now, for those of you who are wondering, why would Conor Benn want to use horsehair gloves? Well, look, he and his team were counting on Eubank Jr. struggling to make weight. He and his team were counting on Eubank Jr. being weight drained and not being 100% come fight night. As a result, they knew that with Eubank Jr. and his performance against Liam Smith and getting knocked out the way he did, even though he got hit with an elbow, but he did get hurt by a punch. They're counting on Eubank Jr.'s punch resistance being diminished, and if they can land a clean shot with the horsehair glove, then they're counting on knocking him out. Now, I'm going to tell you this, right? Y'all remember when there was a big deal about Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury and using horsehair gloves and all that? There's a reason why people use a horsehair glove, and it's perceived to be the puncher's glove. Almost all punchers prefer that horsehair glove. Now, the thing is, the whole glove isn't horsehair, but it's a majority horsehair is my understanding, and it's a mixture of the horsehair and padding. The problem is, right, fighters start breaking those gloves down before they get in the ring. And the reason they do that, man, they want to break down the integrity of that horsehair and start to really wear on it to where it starts to flatten out. And once it starts to flatten out, and the trainer of the fighter, you see him always pushing the glove to the side and pushing it back, because when they do that, that leaves less cushioning. As a result, the knuckles can protrude through, okay? And as a result, fighters get hit with what feels like a fist. And that's why the horsehair gloves are controversial. But look, if they're legal, they're allowed to be used, then it is what it is. But I do think it's a bit of a shit sandwich since these gloves have had so much controversy surrounding them since back in the 1950s and matter of fact, there was a study done back in 1995 that I think it was like over 500 fighters have died because of the use of the horsehair gloves, and there's been other injuries related to fighters using horsehair gloves. But I just think at this point in time, if that's what the commission is allowing, then it is what it is. But I am very concerned, man, about the whole glove thing. And when you look at it, right, you think about Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. They're not talking about who Conor Benn trained with as far as a strength and conditioning guy. But it makes you wonder, Fury was connected to Usman Sajjad, Conor Benn was connected to him. Conor Benn's come up to 156. He's going to be fighting Eubank Jr. Fury put on weight. Fury used a horsehair glove. Conor Benn wants a horsehair glove. It's almost like he's copying the Tyson Fury blueprint. And it just makes you wonder if he gets in that ring with Eubank Jr., the guy who, although he's, it looked like he, just barely avoided a near-death experience, that he's still the fan favorite to win the fight. I just think, man, the longer the fight goes, and if Conor Benn, his energy levels are higher than Eubank Jr.'s because of Eubank Jr.'s weight cut, and Conor Benn using those horsehair gloves, I think it could get real interesting for Eubank Jr. Conor Benn isn't necessarily a hard hitter. I think he can get your attention. He can coochie-coo you. But he can look like a monster in there if Eubank Jr. is weight drained, dehydrated, and punch resistance is gone, and Conor Benn just happens to be hitting him with what feels like his bare fist. But at the same time, I think these gloves can be risky for a guy like Conor Benn who wants to use them. Because to me, if your knuckles are protruding through the glove, I would think there's can almost a damn near guaranteed chance you break your hands. So, I don't know, but definitely no excuse is going to be made if Eubank Jr. loses. He knew what he was signing up to, and he got to deal with the consequences. I still think he beats Conor Benn, but you know what? I'm trying to think, man. If I ever been hit with horsehair gloves. When I was living in Korea, in that gym, they had those gloves they had, and they looked like they like some shit Larry Holmes and Muhammad Ali used to box with. Looked like big old mushrooms, big brown old mushrooms, man. Old ass gloves. And the way they used to flop around, I think those were horsehair. But we used to spar with those, and I took a couple shots with those gloves, man. But those gloves had to be like 20 ounces. I mean, when I tell you, they're like balloons, man. And my boy and I, we used to spar. There's like three of us, we used to spar. But as far as for Eubank Jr., I don't know what to say, man. I want to be following Eubank Jr. I'm concerned about that dude's health. I ain't gonna lie. I know a lot of fighters go through weight cuts. They never, and this is the thing. Some people are saying Eubank Jr. and his team are looking for pity because he's made that weight 160 pounds 3 times. He's never once showed what he had to endure to make the weight. Now he's showing it. I don't know if that's the case, but what I will say is it just gives people an idea of what these fighters put themselves through to entertain us. Shit ain't no joke. Anyway, more to come on Eubank Jr. Conor Benn. The fight's still on. But boy, you would have to think, man, Conor Benn has increased his chances on getting a win that he wouldn't normally win because he and Eubank Jr. both aren't at their peak weight, at their optimal levels, and coming into the fight on an even playing field. It's balanced out as far as a middle ground, as far as a fighting weight, but Eubank Jr. definitely is not where he should be to be comfortable going into probably the biggest fight of his career. But I still think he pulls it out. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. Conor Benn's going to rush him. It's going to give Eubank Jr. opportunities to counter. I just wonder about Eubank Jr. developing low energy in that fight, and a guy like Conor Benn who's coming full steam ahead with basically horsehair gloves and basically hitting them with bare fists. Let's see how it goes. Keep cool in the breeze.